Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to welcome Her Excellency the First Lady of the Rwandan Republic, Ms. Jeannette Kagame. You may be seated. Your Excellency, Ms. Jeannette Kagame, First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda, Madame Graça Machel, senior officials, ladies and gentlemen, our protocol observed, welcome back and welcome to the very first panel discussion of this conference, launching of the New Faces and New Voices chapter in Rwanda. Now, to begin this first panel discussion, I will be inviting the moderators and the panelists who will be taking part in this discussion. So this first panel discussion is entitled Delivering Practical Solutions to Women's Economy. This panel will be moderated by Ms. Julie Gichuru, who's TV host and entrepreneur for ARIMUS Media Limited in Kenya. Ms. Julie Gichuru will be moderating the following panelists: Honorable Ambassador Valentine, Rugwabiza, Honorable Minister of East African Community. Our second panelist is Ms. Diana Ofwona from UN Women Rwanda representative. This panel will also have Dr. James Mwangi, CEO of Equity Group. And last but not least, Mr. Manoj Prashar, East Africa Hub Leader, Principal IO Financial Markets. Help me welcome this very first panel discussion. Ms. Gichuru, you may take it away.
Good morning, everybody. My name, as you've been told, is Julie Gichuru. I host the Africa Leadership Dialogues. It's a pleasure to be here in Rwanda for the launch of this chapter of New Faces, New Voices. This morning, we're discussing delivering practical solutions to the women's economy. I'm going to ask our panelists, let's not be polite. Let's be civilized, but let's address the issues. Yes or no? And there are some serious issues to address. So, as we've heard from the panel this morning, the presentations made, there have been significant advancements and in women's empowerment. However, we have much to do. There are many barriers that still exist. Lack of awareness, information, education, all the way to serious systemic gaps that we need to deal with. And we have heard, it's not by chance that Rwanda has transformed. It was by design. So we must address all these issues. I'm going to ask our panelists, please. I will give each of you an opportunity to set the context for us. Where are we right now, and where should we be? And after you set your context, your perspective on the issues, we'll go into the discussion. I want to provoke thought by kicking off with Diane Ofwona, who is the representative of UN Women here in Rwanda. Diane?
Thank you very much, Julie. First of all, I'm honored to be here. Congratulations, New Faces, New Voices. This is a landscape transforming initiative. Gracious First Lady, Madame Graça Machel, all protocols observed. Where we are, Julie, is a tremendous leap from the 18th century when women could not even vote. We have reached a platform where gender equality, the goal of gender equality, is no longer disputable. We have dynamic, great, earth-shaking women, from the mother who sold fish to take her children to school. But there is something that we have not attained. We've reached incredible heights in political empowerment, as we have seen in the case of Rwanda. We have social success, but there's one big success that is missing: money in women's pockets.
money in women's pockets is where you want to end it for now? I mean, I think you just opened the door. Take us a step further before you hand over.
I really want people to seriously ponder on that.
Right.
Money in women's pockets. And I'm talking about real money.
Yes.
Now, why is this money missing? You know, what happened? What happened? Is somebody disenfranchising? Or is there an institutional disenfranchisement of women? I don't think so. Is there just somebody who says, you know what, let's lock them out of the door. Let's leave them at microcredit level. It's good for them. Let them just organize themselves in little cooperatives and tontines, you know, merry-go-rounds. That's okay for them. I don't think so. When we look globally at the statistics, UN Women has just produced its flagship, Progress of the World's Women, 2015. I really urge you to look at it. It looks at what would the economy look like if it had women at its heart. It would look different. Some of the things I want to say are, one, there has been structural deficiencies, structural mistakes that have been made in policy formulation, leaving women disinherited without land, which is a vital collateral. It's paramount. They do not have the means of production. They don't have that access to capital, except for a few countries, and I unashamedly, again, call out to Rwanda, South Africa, and some countries that have taken a deliberate effort to look at their constitutions, to look at their policies, and to look at the institutions that drive those policies. One of the things that I think need to be looked at across the board is gender-responsive economic policy formulation. It's very deliberate. At times, you have no intention to disenfranchise anyone. But when you open a club and say all are welcome, and then you go ahead and say, but anybody dressed in red cannot come in, and you have 50 people out of 120 who are dressed in red, and they did not know before that you should not wear red, you have already disenfranchised them. So from the policy level, we have to look at what we have. When we are doing the budgets, are we looking critically and crucially at them? And then we have to look at how we access finance, how we access credit. When you go to a bank, and you know, I have so many quarrels with bank managers that at times they ask me, when you're not quarreling with us, what else do you do for a living? And James here knows, you know, sometimes he just doesn't pick my phone anymore. You know, yeah, banks are there to make profit. Well and good. Banks are there to serve people, and money invites money. L'argent appelle l'argent. But you know, you have started at a level where you're starting with a select group of people who had a head start. When I talk of those who have collateral by heritage, by birth, by winning the lucky lottery, they're 1 kilometer ahead of those whose policies who are restricted by the policy environment within which they grew. So to expect the same rules for that person who has started 1 kilometer behind, you told us not to be kind but to be polite, is not common sense. There needs to be a package. There needs to be another way of looking at things. To the credit of Equity Bank, when I was working in New York, we partnered with James and Elizabeth Luanga, and we looked at a special window in Equity Bank for women. And we realized that one of the biggest constraints is financial literacy. It doesn't matter whether you're a judge or whether you're a mamamboga in the market. There's some fundamentals of finance and how money works that we still don't understand and we haven't mastered. And I'm really delighted that Wendy Luhabe, that I have looked for years, is with us today. And I'm even more delighted that we have Sentonomy Wacheke, because they're making a deliberate effort to look at what is lacking for women. Number one, what is money? How does money work? How can I make money work for me? Where do I invest? I thought it was good to put money in a savings account, until I learned from Nancy when she did the FinBiz that, you know, there's something called a fixed deposit on call, where you make interest on a daily basis. And I'm very happy putting that money there in the savings account, and the bank is giving me 0.02%. And I think I'm making money. But you think James is going to tell me?
Diana,
of course he's not going to tell
I'm going to
me.
stop you there. I think you have provoked the thought that we wanted. And your point is noted. I think recently one released a report, Poverty is Sexist, which states the fact that women are suffering much more than their male counterparts. James, I'm going to come to you because really I must. You've been taken to task, and we were together at Grow Africa last week discussing agriculture, and you did make the statement, money chases money. Diana has reiterated that statement. James, set the context for us, and the challenge has been set by Diana as well. You can respond to that as well.
Thank you very much, Judy. Your Excellency, First Lady of Rwanda, Madam Gracia, all protocol observed. It's really a privilege for me to be on this panel, and particularly to contribute to the launch of New Faces, New Voices here, because I believe in the ambition that the chair has and her team, that really this is a transformational step, and a transformational step that offers others who are like-minded to be able to offer support and to be real partners for transformation. But going to the subject, there are two things, Chair, I believe in, that the real transformation of women hedges on two things. The first one is education, and the second one is economic or financial empowerment. And I'll tell you why. And I'd like you to walk with me a little bit journey of about 50 years. I was born on the eve of independence in Kenya. And of course, we didn't understand education. We were the first generation to go to school. My mother had been widowed just when I was a toddler. And one thing she really pushed on was about giving her children opportunity. And I remember how much she struggled to get us to walk 5 kilometers to the nearest primary school every day to get education. But that narrative that she had of an opportunity here today is speaking to this audience. It is purely, I was given an opportunity. I still remember when she took me to school, secondary school, Ishagaki Secondary School. And I was barefooted, and the principal said, no, you can't, will not admit him without shoes. And my mother turned loud. I've never seen my mother express anger, and said, he has never had shoes for the last 15 years. And here he is, he passed his certificate of primary education. Give him a chance, give him an opportunity, and he will pass his secondary education. So when you look at that education has helped me to serve myself, my family, my community, my country, and now I've almost adopted a new country, Rwanda. And as Julia was saying, so essentially you see the power of education. It's the same with financial access. We can focus on a lot of things, but as the last speaker said, money is interesting. Two things that needs to be changed if women, we have to put money into the hearts of women. Policy, and I will be more direct than the previous speaker. We need to change policy and move women issues and empowerment from gender, from socio and development and make it an economic issue. Because the issue is economy. They need to be mainstreamed in terms of economic empowerment. The world is now about economic opportunities. With education, the same level of education, the same college I went is where another panelist, Nancy, went, and Nancy beat me every year for 3 years that we were with her in college. And yet, when it comes out there, I'm given more economic opportunities than Nancy. I only beat Nancy when we went out of the world, out of the class. But in class, she continued to beat me. I believe if Nancy was given the same economic opportunity in borrowing, she could have continued to beat me in the commercial world. That agenda is what needs to be changed. The second thing is that we must mainstream what women are involved in. One of the biggest tragedy, particularly in Africa, is that women are pushed to occupations, not economic activities. The first and most challenging one is about bringing up the family. And it's not recognized. But that is the greatest contribution with the greatest economic contribution to prosperity. But it's never recognized. The second one is agriculture. Whether it is security, it starts with food security. Whether it is a continent like this, ours, we have a competitive advantage. But agriculture is the lowest value contribution sector. And it's not that agriculture can't compete with industries, but it is not mainstreamed with the sufficient investment because it's women who are in agriculture. Those are the things that simply needs to change. If we did value addition in agriculture, women, the mass of the women population in Africa will be transformed because they own agriculture. Lastly, let me close by saying there are about 4 factors of production, economic production. The first one is entrepreneurship. There is nobody who can beat a woman in entrepreneurship. Why? Because she has a natural gift of entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship is nurturing a legal person. That was what we call companies. And if you look at women, they are gifted in nurturing even life. If they are able to nurture life, why couldn't they nurture a legal life? So you see the competitive. Then they don't have a problem with RAD. Women are mainly in rural areas where RAD is plenty. RAD is not a problem. Labor is not a problem. The woman controls the family labor. But the only thing lacking is capital. And capital is finance. Now, there is always a theory, and my friend here keeps on harassing me. That's why occasionally I fail to take her phone. Because she has an office in my office. UN Women has an office within Equity Office. And basically the reason why that capital seeks a return. Capital seeks a rent. And so if women are occupied in activities that cannot pay a return and cannot pay rent, then capital is shy. Finance is shy. And that is why I say money for us, money. Money is very powerful in smelling where money is being generated. There is enough money. If Equity doesn't have enough money, the central bank where Dr. Monique works has enough money to lead to the FAD. IFC, represented here by my colleague, has enough money to lead to the FAD. But the FAD will not get any funding from the private sector unless the women it is funding are able to generate a return. It's as simple as that. So the question is, how do we mainstream women in economic activities that generate a return? I want to rest my case.
Thank you. I think it's a pertinent question. A couple of important things. Land ownership, a key issue. Women don't have a problem with the land. Women work the land on this continent. It's us who do it. But land ownership is an issue. And I just want to tap into the question of socialization there. And we may say culture. Many of the laws in our countries do not prevent women from owning land. It is the cultural issues around that. And how do we address that? Also, James, the point you've raised, I think Nancy is your colleague here. Nancy, where are you? Can we see where Nancy is? Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Right. Let's recognize. And the fact that perhaps we need to, again, socialize women to be a little bit more aggressive in the business environment, not to seek jobs. How do we take on risk in a strategic fashion? Because we tend to run away from risk. Are those some of the things we should be considering? Is that part of the education that we've been talking about? And we come now to you, Manoj, and really your insights into this issue. Where are we now? And what do you think are the critical things that need to be done to transform this situation?
Thank you. Your Excellency, First Lady of Rwanda, Madam Graça Machel, protocols observed. Firstly, let me just begin by saying how privileged I feel in sitting in the company of not just this distinguished panel, but the achievers that I see all around us. And I think, Madam Machel, you hit the thing bang on in the morning. The stories are not being told. You all are great achievers, but the stories are not being told, whether it's Asia or it's Africa. It's all the focus is on microfinance. There were millions of women who were not getting finance, or households, and now they're getting finance. But I think a lot of the achievement stories are not being told, and I really got a resonance when he said we have to work through the media in some ways. So let me just, like my panelists, begin with a slightly personal note here. Just 10 years back, about 12 years back, I moved to IFC in Asia. I was 20 years banking in Europe. Asia, I have to say, is when I look at the statistics, I look at my experience in Africa, is way behind Africa. And I mean that quite seriously. And each time I have an investment which goes from Rwanda to a board, and we describe it for its commercial, strategic aspects, I think there's so much joy, and I feel the burst of energy when we have the statistic which says 64% of parliamentarians are women. I remember just 2 weeks back, we had the statistic which said the workforce, women in workforce in Rwanda, the largest density by population is in Rwanda. I think that deserves the applause, right? It's unprecedented. In Asia, I think we've seen two things. We've seen a lot of issues which were raised in the morning, which have to do about the capital, the capacity, and its delivery. But we also see a social context which is very different. So there are 2 or 3 things which I want to talk about are slightly different. They all have the same themes, and my institution itself, these are predominant themes when we look at our investments and we look at capacity creation. But to me, some of these things touch me personally. I used to work in what's called leveraged private equity, where we spent billions of dollars in businesses. We had to work at various aspects. There was a lot at stake. And we work very closely with the boards and governance. And what we see today is, I hear a lot of talk which says that there has to be this capacity creation, focus on governance. And some of the arguments are well placed, but some of these arguments that I see, I find a bit perverse. And these arguments tend to submit that there has to be a certain degree of literacy before women come into these positions of power, for example, board representations. And I say I find this perverse because I don't see a role model when we look at the corporate governance across the world. You look at the 2008 crises, there's the big institutions created $1 trillion hole, if not more, and none of these boards were dominated by women or even represented. So my submission, the first one would be about the empowerment. And as I said, because my last 10 years were working in different regions in Asia, I feel that's very, very important. You have to empower women right away and then worry about how they can be scaled, or they can be, capacity could be created. And this starts right at the corporate boards itself. So we just cannot wait. We just cannot wait and say, now the women have to come up the rank and they have this background to be eligible at the board. I don't see too many men who are eligible to be at the board to begin with. So the first thing I would submit is actually about the empowerment. Mm-hmm. The second thing would be actually going from here, and since the theme is more around finance in the seminar. I would think that there's been a lot of progress, certainly, and you look at Rwanda, it's probably a role model for other economies, and particularly to the rest of economies in Asia and Africa. But I would actually go a step ahead and actually see the change which is happening in the financial world today. Money is becoming a commodity. There's been a lot of progress in financial literacy. There will be more, but the key change will be, it will not be the money. It will be the knowledge economy around the financial world. And here's where I personally feel there's not just a lot of gender discrimination, that's also where we have to make a lot more progress. And that progress is sometimes in the kind of networks I think the women have to create. Sometimes it's about the information and a lot of these things. So it's not just about the access to finance, or not just about the literacy in terms of capacity, but actually it's how you plug into this economy. A part of this economy is the technology, which is driving the financial world, whether it's mobile banking or the use of technology in real sector businesses, SMEs. I think that's my second submission, that it's actually all about this. The third thing I feel very strongly about, and more so as a person, because my institution dabbles a lot in statistics. There's talk about development indicators, there's talk about developmental goals, but I think we are missing something at the macro level itself. And that particular thing is, all our economic indicators are so gross, and they are 100, 150 years old. Indicators like GDP, they never give a balanced picture of what's going on. Now, to me, it seems very strange that we can talk about progress when we are excluding 50% of the population which is involved in the progress. So I think these indicators themselves need to change. We can't have development and progress when we're not measuring a balanced progress across all the genders. So that's my third submission, that we need different, not just to measure progress, but also to put the focus squarely. And this is, again, I'm resonating Madam Graça Machel's point in the morning, that at the aggregate level, whether you're talking SMEs or penetration or microfinance, anything, it really hides more than it reveals. So I think once we have the indicators, we can not only track them, we're able to, institutions like myself, they are able to put focus where it's due.
Thank you for that. We come now to Ambassador, and you've achieved so much in Rwanda. You don't lead in Africa. In many ways, you lead globally, and that is incredible. But you can see where your East African neighbors are. You see the challenges. So from your perspective, how do we move other nations forward?
Thank you, Julie. Madam First Lady, Madam Graça Machel, I was wondering during the coffee break what really our panel was going to talk about after the powerful messages that we received this morning during the opening from the First Lady, Graça Machel. I think that there is no better place to have such a conversation, the conversation we are having here, than in Rwanda, if only for two reasons. First of all, because you can hardly dream of a more conducive environment for women than this country. But also second, because we are quite used to innovation, just trying things that have never been tried elsewhere. And really, we know, we have heard from the Deputy Governor this morning where the issues are. Where the issues are, it's not lack of finance. It's really definitely not lack of finance. We have enough finance. We have enough finance in the banks, in non-banking institutions. So we have an issue of basically being able to bring the demand and the supply together. We know the needs. We have the supply, but then the two are not working together, at least not working together as we wish them to work together for women. And what I would like to suggest here, it's clear now that we know the needs and we know that we have the supply. It's clear that some of the issues have to do with the type of guarantees that are demanded from women. Those type of guarantees that are demanded from women, quite honestly, how do we expect to lead that wave that was talked about this morning with the same traditional type of guarantees? It is simply not possible. Women will remain at the margins if the same type of collateral is demanded from them, is demanded of them. So I do believe that here we have the financial sector, we have the regulators, we are here ourselves, the policy makers. We have all what is needed, and the women are here. We have all the parties needed to sit together and simply innovate in that and decide that, well, is it a matter of risk, the way we assess risk, the way we appreciate risk? Then if it is a matter of risk, let's discuss with the insurance. Let's discuss with the insurance how we could work together to really lower that risk. So I believe that we do have a number of possible practical solutions to be able to increase the access of women to finance. That is one way. Another issue, which was identified clearly this morning, has to do with just information, having information. We have a number of initiatives, a number of programs that are all aimed at improving the access to finance, women access to finance. Well, we hardly know those programs. We hardly know what is on offer. So there is a need to bridge this gap in terms of information. And here, I really think this is something that New Faces, New Voices could address heads on by being that one-stop center where really information, we could find information, women could find information. They could go there and say, well, what is exactly on offer? So there are a few things, I do believe, Julie, there are a few things, practical things, that could be done immediately. And then the way we keep our savings. We are here, many of us. Well, we actually, those who don't have the information don't exactly have the same treatment when you engage banks than those who have the information. We all know that, well, the interest rate is of 18%. Well, if you have the information, if you negotiate well, you can actually get a much better deal than that. So that is also something, this capacity to deal on behalf of women, this is also something, in my view, that could be done by New Faces, New Voices. Just being that intermediary, being able to provide that, to just prepare the deal and help make the case. That is also something that could really be done by New Faces, New Voices. Now, last point I would like to make, the way we keep our savings. Quite honestly, I will speak for myself. I don't have much saving. But the way we keep our savings is just far too traditional. Keeping the savings in the banks, and maybe for some that are much more innovative, well, they invested in properties, but keeping just money in the bank, that is not productive, while just we have such a huge potential, a huge part of our population, women, that is actually can make use of that money to get millions out of poverty, to get to that target of getting 1 million out of poverty. Can't we agree here that we will work with those who can guarantee our savings, that we get some insurance there? But why is it that I will keep my savings in one of the traditional banks, where really, quite honestly, I'm not getting anything out of that, and I'm not bothered about. I'm not even expecting to get much more out of that. Can't we move that and have in this new investment vehicle that we are putting in place, just to allow this new investment vehicle to be in a better position to negotiate. Can't we agree that we'll move, if not the totality, but part of our savings there? And ensure that we have the guarantee that our savings are guaranteed there, instead of keeping them in traditional banks. Why? Because by doing so, we will provide some leverage. Competition is important. We need to create some competition here. Unless we create some competition for our friends from traditional banking, things are not likely to change.
James, in Kiswahili, I ask, umesikia?
Thank you very much, Julie.
Before I come to you, just to say what Ambassador has told us as women is we need to put our money where our mouths are. Alternative investment vehicles that feed back into financing women, shaking up the status quo a little bit and making bankers like James a little bit uncomfortable so that they are forced to innovate more, give us better rates, better products, better services. That's powerful. I want to put, thank you. I just want to put on standby two people who were mentioned by Diana Ofwona earlier, Wendy Luhabe and Washeke. If you're in the audience, when we come to Q&A, I'll just ask you to quickly share your views on us with us this afternoon. So I want to come back to the panel before we go forward. James, I think I will, in all fairness, come to you next. You can respond to Ambassador, and I was going to ask about gender-responsive innovations and good practices that we can introduce to the market. I think she's challenged you already on that, so please go ahead.
I think I want to agree with Ambassador. I think women have to use the power they have to negotiate good deals for themselves, to ensure they are represented, they become the new voices, they become the new faces, particularly in financial inclusion. But it's also good to say, and one thing that is underestimated when we talk about finance is about capacity to borrow and to underwrite the risk of whatever business women want to do so that they can earn a return and be able to refund the money. When we want to get our children taught, we ask, where is the best trained teacher? Which school has the best teachers? When we want an architect to draw or design our houses, we ask, who is the best trained architect in town? The same we applies to engineers. I guess, Judy, it also applies to the bankers. And, but the same question should then apply when we talk about women in business. It is essential and important we realize finance and entrepreneurship is a skill and a competence that we all must be willing to learn. And what I really am very excited about the Rwanda chapter of New Faces and New Voices is the focus on capacity building. Money and finance is not a sufficient condition. It is just but one of the conditions that will make women successful. How do we build the capacity? Starting with financial literacy of women, then entrepreneurship capability, risk management, and other skills that are required for women to be successful in business. I also want to agree with Ambassador about savings. Savings need not be in deposit in bank accounts. Saving is accumulation of what you don't consume today. It might be in a plot, it might be in a car, it might be in anything else. But it is important as we think about women, we inculcate a saving culture, in whichever form culture, because financial and economic empowerment is about wealth creation. And wealth creation is a function of savings. If we don't build a saving culture, then we shall never create wealth, and we will never fully empower women. And saving is not about bank balances. It's not consuming everything that we receive today. That is how you build. The second thing, I think that I would really advocate, particularly for the network, is about linkages. How do we create? And I look at the business. We can introduce women to business straight away, and that is very easy. We can take a risk capital and get 100 women in business. But how do we create success by creating linkages? We have financed agriculture a lot, agribusinesses in Kenya, and then you find there is no market for the produce. There is no storage for the produce after harvest, and 40% is post-harvest waste. Or there is no market and there is no uptake. Once one linkage fails, the whole effort that we have been nurtured into. So the question is, how do we create value chains in the sectors that women are doing business in? How do we create supportive ecosystems that support them? So it is very good we focus and get money into women, but it is equally important to ensure the activities that they are in, they are linked to the whole value chain and to the whole ecosystem, and then it will work. But I agree with Ambassador, we need to make money easy. But there is also a challenge that people fear banks before they have approached the banks.
No, they fear them justifiably so in many cases.
Chair,
Diana, not.
68% of equities are lending. And
Yes.
I want to thank UN Women and UNDP for really partnering with us. 68% is unsecured. It is what you call cash flow driven lending. You look at the project and they'll say, yeah, it will generate sufficient cash flow. But most people stick with a mindset that I will not go to the bank because there is, I will be asked security. So there will be an opportunity, and that's why I would really like to be a long-term partner, so that we can also change our attitude towards institutions that are available to provide credit.
Thank you, James. The woman in this room is not a typical African woman in the sense that many of us are privileged. I think Gracia referred to the fact that we must do what we can when we're in positions of privilege. But I do want to get you a sense of your feelings about banks. As women entrepreneurs here, how many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Women in business in one way or another. How many? Not very many. Hands right up, please. Let me get a sense. How many of you are comfortable with your bank? How many of you have had difficult, awkward experiences once, twice, or many times with your bank? Hands right up if you have. Okay, so that's the problem. And I think, it's good to hear that unsecured loans are being issued, but I think it's a whole spectrum of issues that perhaps needs to be addressed. But back to you, Diana, now. And I really want to look now at women's participation and women's leadership in the financial sector. It's wonderful to see Monique leading the drive that she is and accomplishing what she's accomplishing in Rwanda. It makes us women across the different nations very proud of her, because we don't often see it. How important is it to have women in these positions?
Thank you, Julie. I came armed with some statistics, and I want to read them out to you. The Board of Directors of select intergovernmental and private financial and regulatory institutions. These figures are for 2014. How many of them have women at the highest, on the highest ranks of these institutions? IMF, 4%. World Bank, 20%. International Accounting Standard Boards, 14%. International Institute of Finance, 6%. Bank for International Settlements, 10%. International Organizations of Securities Commission, 19%. And these statistics come from a range of researchers, the brightest and the best across the world, who have made a deliberate effort to see where women are in the financial institutions. Why is it important to have women at the helm of financial institutions? There are two things I want to say. Number one, there's a problem right there when you have to beg and grovel for what is rightfully yours. You have, as James said, the same education, you have the same brains, but when you go out into the job market, something happens. I'm sad to say that there are still some countries in the world where women, there's no policy for equal pay for equal work. There's this distortion that happens. Now, why is it important that women be at the helm of any institution? You know, they say that the wearer of the shoe knows where it pinches most. When women, like my sister Mariama, and I'm so proud of her, at the helm of a banking institution, she's a woman, she will have the tendency to understand the real issues and what prevents women, what constrains them from leaving that poverty stream. What things, you know, I like the way the First Lady said it's a question of dignity. You will see how a bank manager will treat a woman who comes with her Range Rover, her personal guard, her, you know, and the other one who's literally sneaking into the bank because she's not sure whether her account is in the red. When you go, for example, I recently had a situation in one of the refugee camps when I went to Kar, and it was in actually South Sudan, and there was one lady who told me that I spoke to the camp manager. Said, "Do you have any issues?" And he said, "No, everything is going well. We are distributing food to everybody." And then I said, "Oh, okay." There's one woman who's told me that she got her ration, but her 1-month baby cannot eat the rations that they're given because it's dry rice and the baby is 1 month old. The baby needs to have milk. And the camp manager was, he was enlightened. A good man, bless his soul. But it did not occur to him that a 1-month-old baby cannot eat rice, maize, and beans. But the woman, had it been a woman as a camp manager, I'm sure they would have bought some powdered milk. Trust me.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Those are the unconscious biases that many of us live with and we don't realize, and perhaps that's why women's representation is so key. Let me move on to you now, Manoj, and your thoughts. And I really want to tap in, before we go to questions from the audience, into recommendations in terms of policy. What would you like to see, programs and partnerships that you would like to see on the ground to actually enable and incentivize women's participation in the financial system?
Thank you. Let me just start by saying I'm so happy you're continuing spot on my partner bank. Normally in these conferences, I find the IFC and World Bank getting picked for not doing enough. So I'm very happy to have James shoulder all the questions on banking. But I think I'll go back to those 3 issues I raised in the opening session. I think the first and foremost to me is the empowerment, and I entirely agree with my panelists that this subtext, this very subtle, nuanced way of saying that a certain part of the population needs to get qualified before they're members of the board or before they dominate the board of the World Bank or IMF. I think there's a very subtle agenda at work here, and I'm speaking both privately and also in the way I see across the world. So the first thing is, and I don't see when I go to my investment committees or I go to my board that I get any better advice from representations in committees which are sometimes and more often dominated by men. So to me, the first thing would be the empowerment right away. And I'm throwing back to my private equity days in the 90s where we acquired a very large company in Norway. And we were going to restructure it to get the value. And all of a sudden, somebody sprang up that 30% of the board legally had to be women. And we were scurrying for cover, trying to find women in my bank, which was Citicorp, by the way, in those days. And in that time, I didn't really understand the implications. For me now, I think the empowerment has to begin right at the top. And without this prevarication or this qualification and this talk that we're hearing, I think the capacity creation and all that can come by and by. but you really need to just start with simple targets. And again, some of the institutions like us have to take the lead. I mean, I'm quite aware that our institution has a target of 30% of a board being women by, I think it's 2015. 50% of our middle management workforce, especially being recruited, has to have this target also. But I think that target perhaps needs to go across. In some cases where the cultural context will you might take generations, I think it has to begin legally. And there's absolutely no harm in that. Because I think the comforting fact which all of us underline is the talent exists. It's a shame we are not tapping into the rich talent pool because of a certain way we've been doing business in the corporate sector. So I think that's really the first thing. The second thing I would say is going back to my knowledge economy theme, which is, once we go across the basic savings and the basic credit and the financial literacy, today when you're all in business, I think there are ways of attracting both credit as well as capacity to the institutions. But that needs some technology, and that's not rocket science. So sometimes that's just information, but there are ways in which you can manage donors, in the way you can use DFIs, in the way you can use commercial banks, in the way you can use private equity, in the way you can use venture capitalists, and in the way you can use government money. I think, but putting it all together, I mean, there's a huge, huge gap in either people who can advise, because all the big advisors advise big companies on big projects. I think that's a very big gap. So somehow, I think that creation has to be done. We need to look at innovative ways into doing that. I mean, I don't have a clear-cut way, but I see a lot of things happening which together might address this in some way, not in full measure, but in some partial measure. I know of a lot of microfinance institutions, for example, creating micro investment banks and advisory groups to address women, small-scale groups, and other women. We have programs with people like Goldman Sachs, with companies like Coke, to address this more specifically, but it's a much broader issue. And I can say one thing, we don't do, as a DFI, too much of direct investment because we are a relatively small institution. But, and we go through our partner banks like Equity Bank. So we have 50% wholesale, 50% direct real sector, manufacturing, infrastructure. But wherever we get involved in these projects, whether big or small, my experience is there's no project, or there is no institution, or there's no SME which shouldn't qualify. It is just the structuring. And a lot of times we've seen, and I can just think of one quick example, is we were working in South Asia with the largest women's group, which empowers livelihood and financial kind of literacy. And the project was that they were going to put some core banking system into a bank. They had a huge project where it was healthcare driven, but it was regarding cook stores where women cook from wood. It had to do with solar lanterns. And overall, it just got overwhelming. And the banks, we were trying to get in banks to finance, and they said, this asset class is untested. Now, these are, again, the subtle words which I normally use when you come against prejudices more than statistics. So what we found is once you can break that down into smaller projects, for example, you can have a cook store project as a climate change project where you can get donors like either it's oil companies or big companies. You can have the lantern project with different people coming in. You can have IT coming into the banks. Right. So a lot of this is what I call the knowledge economy, knowledge technology. I think how we bring that to the smaller sector and not just the big corporates, that is both the challenge and the opportunity.
Right, thank you. Ambassador, quickly before we go to the floor, give us some examples of actual programs or initiatives that you think can be replicated across the board to help with transformation.
First of all, the way we have achieved financial inclusion here, the way we have increased the financial inclusion through the circles that are the best known, but few other initiatives as well at rural level. But again, the financial inclusion there is really, there is a difference between having people, having a place, formalizing more or less the way of keeping money, and using that money for productive purposes, for businesses. So that is where the challenge is. Just coming back to your earlier question, I think in the region we do have some very good examples, actually. When you look at what has been done through M-Pesa in Kenya and few other innovative initiatives where really banks linked up with telecoms and were able to really provide and devise products which were much more innovative. So I don't think we're short of really success stories that could be replicated here and there. I think what we need is just the magnitude to scale up.
We need to amplify.
We need to amplify. Right. We need to amplify that. We need to move from that being really kind of few isolated cases and get to what we want. If we want a wave, then we really need to move to that. And if we consider that a distance is distance. It's not only distance that is a problem, by the way, when it comes to accessing financing. 2 weeks ago, I had an appointment with the lady that I wanted to do my hair, to braid my hair. So I had an appointment with her, and I just agreed. She lives in Kigali, 7 miles away, and I just explained where I live and how she should get there. And I was surprised when she told me that, oh, I never got into that part of the city. I've never been into that part of the city. I said, well, what do you mean? You're coming from, you have moved very recently to Kigali? She told me, no, I've always been in Nyamirambo, but I've never been in that part of the city where you live. So it just forced me to put to myself that I had assumed that she will get there. Right. That she will get there very easily, that everybody knows because it is in Kigali and because she lives in Kigali, that she will get there easily. So why am I telling this story? Banks assumed that people will get access, will not be intimidated by getting into financial institutions. Financial institutions are intimidating. So they're intimidating. So can't we change the ways? And instead of waiting, this model of waiting for people to come to you, which puts them already in a position, quite honestly, in a position that is already not comfortable. Can't we get to them? Right. And if women are organized in cooperatives, women are organized in SMEs, and even if they are not, we can help them getting better organized, but really make it real, make mobile financing and mobile banking real, and get to them. Because if we get to them in their own environment, then it's a different kind of conversation. You're not having a conversation with one person for whom it is really, who had to pass so many, if you like, so many barriers, had to cross so many barriers and the few who will get to the bank, but we're getting to them.
And I think in that space, a lot of innovations are hitting the market now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as people come offering money and using different modes to determine who they lend to based on patterns, based on the information they have about their borrowing, their spending previously. I see James nodding his head. He'll perhaps tell us a little bit more about that a bit later. First, let me come to maybe Wendy Luhabe and Washeke. Where are they? Are they in the room? Yes, Washeke is there and Wendy's next to her. If a mic could please rush up to the two to share their views broadly on this issue. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure what you are asking us to share, but let me just say
innovative models and
I'm
ideas.
in a panel tomorrow, but let me just say that I'm in agreement with the issue that's been mentioned about education. The point I would like to add is that for me, education of financial literacy will not be sufficient. Educating and cultivating a culture of financial independence has to be embedded in the education system broadly, irrespective of what we study. Because we all have to manage money, and the fact that we are not taught how to manage money and how to create wealth as we're getting educated and early enough in our lives is a travesty. The second point that I want to mention is the power, again, something that's been mentioned by the panel, the power of mobilizing collective resources by women, irrespective of how much money we have. I just don't think we understand that power. You know, if all we can afford is $10 or whatever the amount is, if we mobilize, if we pool our resources, we'll be able to do so much more as women. The third point that I want to suggest is around the notion of savings. To consider if we want to change our participation in the ecosystem of wealth creation in our lifetime and in one generation, we need to look at making a financial commitment as women that says we will contribute 10% of what we earn as women towards a fund that will invest in women entrepreneurs and that will enable women to participate in the economy. We have to be audacious. We can't really make these incremental commitments. We have to make a major commitment that we are willing as women to invest in, because when we've raised our own capital and we've pooled our resources, we can then negotiate. We're in a much better position of power to go to government and say, we've raised $10 million as women, we'd like you to match it. We can go to financial institutions and say, we've raised so much money, we would like you to match it. So those would be the additional comments that I wanted to add.
Thank you very much for that. Washeke, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Washeke Ndoati Omanga. I am a woman entrepreneur who runs a business that teaches people how to actually manage money and create wealth. And thank you very much for inviting me here. I was invited by UN Women. And I'd just like to catch on to something, even from the experience I've had with teaching people. And what I really want to just comment on is the transition from savings to wealth creation. It's great to save. It is a first step, but it is not enough. Wealth is what works for you when you are not working. So as much as we are talking about land, and sometimes because of our culture, we do get fixated on land. But it's not just about owning land, it's about making land productive. It's also thinking beyond land. Land may not be for everybody, but can we start enterprises? Can we do other investments that actually are productive? The day you do not go to your job, what is going to put bread and butter on your table? That is wealth. It is not a piece of land. It is not a car. So I think at the end of the day, we do have to change our mindset about what wealth creation means to each and every one of us and what it truly means. The second comment, and I'm also on a panel tomorrow, so I won't say everything, but I just want to challenge us and challenge the banks. And this is not particular to Equity Bank, James, because I know Equity has done a lot. But just from personal experience, I, a month ago, tried to take a loan to expand my business, to put up a training center, and the bank that I've been banking with for so long refused to give me the loan and gave me all sorts of conditions, again pegging it to a piece of, that I should have a piece of property to put as collateral. However, the same bank will give my employees personal consumption loans. My business pays their salary, but they won't give me the business money to expand, but they'll give employees money to buy a car. So also banks, I think, need to start changing their lending policies and says, instead of personal consumption, can we drive wealth creation? Can we drive investment? The same bank, I just did this as an experiment, and they were, if I had applied for the same amount of money to buy a car, they would have given me the loan. So we really have to say, even as we're supporting women, what are we supporting them to do? To personally consume, because you're giving me money to buy a depreciating item instead of growing a business that will employ more people, that will actually educate more people. But on the other side, and because I've done research and I've gone to banks and asked, what do you need to see so that you lend to people? even us as women who want to access these loans, we also have to say, remember, wealth is not created in disorder. Sometimes why the bank is not able to give us is because our stuff is in disorder. We don't have the statements, we don't have corporate governance. So even us as women, and particularly women in business, it's time, if we do want that business to be a true wealth creation vehicle, we have to learn to put order to it, because without order, the bank will not look at you and should not be able to take the risk on you. So I look forward to speaking more tomorrow. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Very helpful comments. Please put your hands up if you have a question or you want to make a comment. Let's see your hands up. Monique here at the front. Is there a lady in the middle as well? Thank you. It's Nancy. Do I see another? Yes, the lady in red. I see you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Diana. Yes. We are talking of taking women to the center stage, C-suite membership in boards. What does it take for one to get there? I believe there is maybe what financial institutions have to do, their management, but what does it take of a woman really to also play some role and make some effort to be recognized and get there?
Thank you. Thank you for that. The lady in the middle, please put your hand up again, somewhere there. Yes, Nancy over there. And then after her, we'll come to the lady in red on this side. And then I see a few more hands. We'll try and take more after that. Thank you.
Hello, as you know, my name is Nancy Onyango. I was James's classmate. I just wanted to make a comment to James. James, you said I beat you in class for 3 years. I'm a partner at Ernst & Young. I lead the Governance, Risk and Compliance Africa. So I really question whether you're beating me now or I'm still beating you. But I wow. Okay, on a more serious note, thank you very much for the invitation. I've been privileged to be associated with New Faces, New Voices. I was here when they launched initially and had a FinBiz series, and I presented to a number of people who are here on what it is women should be doing on financial empowerment at a personal level. I think I just want to make a comment and maybe finish off with a question for James and others sitting on the panel. There are a lot of barriers that women face. Julie mentioned some of them at a societal level, perhaps at a legislative level where it comes to land, at an institutional level, and so forth. But in my experience, the biggest barrier is the woman herself, the individual. That is the biggest barrier. Women, we have to step up. We have to wake up and ask those questions. And I think the lady has talked about getting order in terms of what it is you do. The capabilities, the skills, the competencies you have, the brain you have, I can assure you is no different to a male brain. Yeah? But the reality is, what do we do with it? Yeah? What do we do with it? Our confidence, our attitude, the questions we ask, the way we are submissive, the way we behave.
But Nancy, before you go, because I think you raise a really critical point, and very often we're discussing finances right now, and I will start to move back to socialization because of the way we are brought up. And in most African families, I will say it, the son is held up as a prince, and the daughter is often the helper in the home. The son is told to discipline the daughter if she's out of line. The daughter will make an intelligent comment, no one will listen at the table. 5 minutes later, when the son repeats the same comment, everyone will pat him on the back. So we are socialized into a position of, so how do we address it? Aside from us knowing we need to break the chains, what else can we do?
A very good point you've made. I am an only girl. I have 3 brothers. I have 3 sons, no daughters. I have a lot of experience in dealing with testosterone. But what I would say is the way to do it is actually what I did with James in class. Do your best. Yes. You've got to turn around. Thank you.
Right. Do your best. And can I just say to mothers in the room that sometimes we are the facilitators of this this culture. And I need to always tell my sons, I have several sons and one daughter, and the minute they say she's a girl, or it's because she's a girl, or they try to put her down, I say, Mommy was a girl once. And you know, women, it's so interesting, James, Manoj, for sons, their mother is everything. Then all of a sudden, when you grow up, I don't know what happens to men, they all of a sudden forget the importance of the women. So if we as women can continuously remind our sons that every woman was a girl, maybe that will help to change things. I saw hands, I'm so sorry, I saw hands. So the lady in red over here, there's a lady right at the back, I see you there in glasses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, go ahead.
My name is Shamsi Kazimbaya. I'm here on behalf of an organization called Rwanda Men's Resource Center. It is an organization that works with men, engaging...
Rwanda Men's Resource Center.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, working with men to engage them for gender equality.
Wow.
So actually my question or concern goes with what you have just said about the solution, and it goes with socialization. Actually, most of the speakers talked about traditional and cultural issues. And my question actually is, where are the gatekeepers? And the gatekeepers actually are the men, the fathers, the brothers, the sons, and all that. Because actually from my own experience and the research that we did, Rwanda is doing a lot in terms of empowering women, in terms of education and finance and everything. But at the end of the day, we are having these kind of, barriers. And most of the time, it's actually the gatekeepers, the men. And I think maybe sometimes also having some women who are successful in terms of finance and business, but again, there is a kind of imbalance. Access, yes, but at the end of the day, what about control? Women are having access to financial resources, but at the end of the day, they don't have any control over what they are earning in the household or their families. So for me, I'm seeing this as a very big challenge. I didn't see when Dr. Monique was talking, when she mentioned the challenges, she didn't mention actually this kind of challenge, the role of the men to help to empower women. Because once challenges are not very well, addressed, because actually solutions and strategies are built on the challenges. So I think we really need to think about the role of men in empowering women in finance and business. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good point. And I know that UN Women has the incredible He for She campaign. Hashtag, if you're on Twitter. How many on Twitter? Let's see, how many on Twitter? Oh, there should be many more. Hashtag He for She. Very powerful campaign. Let's see, hands up. I'll take 3 more. So the lady right at the back in the glasses, please. Do we have any other hands on this side? The lady in green over there? So right at the back. Right at the back. Thank you. And then you, and then the lady in green. Thank you. Oh, where are the men? Are there men with their hands up? I'm very gender sensitive. No men? Okay, please go ahead. I see you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Julie. My name is Maria Odido, and I'm from Uganda. I'm an agri-industrialist. I invest in the rural areas in value addition, and I think at some point I'll be speaking about value addition. I'm also one of the only 4 women in Uganda who heads a public sector board, and I'm also the honorary consul of Botswana in Uganda. Thank you very much. I just want to say, and I think somebody raised it, that a lot of times women look externally to find solutions, but what do we do to drive the solutions ourselves? There's a lot of information that's out there. Do we seek it? And we also need to understand as women that as long as we remain small within the SME sector, we will need hand-holding. But once you start to get beyond a certain level, it's no longer about being a man or a woman. It's about competition. And what do you understand about business and competition? And I think women really need to grasp what competition in the world is about. Business is not about to change because women need it to change. women need to step up and understand how men think, how men drive the economy, and how we can carve our own niche within that environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maria Odido is my fellow sister and Monique's fellow sister in the Africa Leadership Initiative. Maria, I had not recognized you. It is old age setting in all the way back there. Thank you for that comment. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Joel Rugwabiza. I work at the Center for Gender Studies as the director in Rwanda. I would like to come back to the issue of informal versus formal. Where do we find the women, really? And on this, I still want to come back to the issue of socialization. Because, as we were saying, women and men or boys and girls go to the same class, but as they reach out into the world, the men are ahead. What really happens? I think it is still tied to the roles or the responsibilities that women go into. Many times we see women leaving university, they have performed very well, they have excelled, but 5 years down the road, we don't know where they are. We keep on asking, where are the women? So when we are looking at the issue of informal and formal, how can we reach the women? Maybe women maybe prefer to work close to where they are so that they can manage those responsibilities. So how can we even make that informal work out well for them and promote them in their businesses or financially? Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. My eyes are not doing so well, but I'm sure I saw green there at the back. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm Jury. I work for international organizations funded by USAID. My question goes directly to Equity CEO, though it was raised by Ms. Diana. What do you have, or how do you do or plan to address financial illiteracy among women, mainly rural women? Because we have had that development includes all. And then in rural, there are more chances, but there's still a problem of illiteracy, financial illiteracy. What do you plan, or what do you do to address that challenge? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. The gentleman here at the front. And I think that's the final question we can take. Third row, please. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, is it a lady? Yes. Do we have a gentleman in the house with his hand up? Wait, hold on just one moment. Do we have a gentleman with a hand up? Yes, we do.
I think if you allow me,
okay, go
I would
ahead
like to ask
and then pass
my
it
question,
on.
but it's not a question, it's a comment.
Okay.
But before that, I would like to introduce myself. I am Marem Jai, Managing Director of EcoBank Rwanda. I've been in the country for 3 months now. But I would like, to respond to my big sister, Diane, because she brought me on the table by mentioning my name. Diane, you gave some statistic about women representation in terms of financial institution. But I would like to talk about EcoBank, how we empower women. 10 years ago, I will give you statistic. 10 years ago, at the EcoBank Transnational Incorporated Board, which is our head office, headquarters, we used to have 5% of women. As we speak today, we have 26%. At the managing level, which I'm part, 5 years ago when I joined the managing level, I was the managing director of EcoBank Gambia. We used to be 5% out of 36 countries. As we speak today, you have 20% of women that are managing directors. At the business leader level, we used to be, 5 years ago, 10% in terms of women representing the business leader team. As we speak today, we have 30% of women. So we are sitting on the table. So we are seeing some improvement. So it was important for me to have this comment because as the Pan-African Bank, we want to change things. We want to make a difference. And I think Madame Graça Machel and the First Lady said it well. You need to be at the table where decisions are made, and we need to participate. So this is my contribution.
Thank you
but
very much.
I want, sorry, before I close that,
Literally
sorry.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Yes.
I will be short. Is about the innovation that the ambassador have brought on the table. We need as a bank or as the fraternity, the banking fraternity, to be innovative in the product that we are putting for our customers that are women. And to do so, we need to partner.
Right.
This is where I really want to appeal on the development institution, the like of the ADB, the like of IFC, the like of Islamic Development Bank, to have a specific windows, to have a specific products to help the commercial bank addressing the women needs.
So
and we are prepared to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That
The
was my
gentleman next to
contribution.
you. I'll ask you to make it as brief as possible. My apologies, but we've got to wind up shortly, so please go ahead.
Mine is very short. Thank you very much. My name is Ephraim Turahirwa. I'm the CEO of one of the banks here. I would wish to...
Which bank? Go on, tell us which bank.
I would wish to tell you that actually when we do the business of banking, we look at the risk, and the risk is never gender specific. Tell you the truth, we look at the risk, and to start with, we are having what you call scorecard. A scorecard is not a male or a female, it's a machine having parameters within it. But I'm telling you,
the parameters
I'm telling
are
you,
the issue.
if everything else is the same, if everything else is the same, and one is a man, one is a woman, a woman has more scores than a man. So a woman is better selected than a man because historically we have found out, because we are building up statistics, the statistics we have for the last 5 years show that actually women are more paying than the men. And actually,
thank you. So it's better to
maybe you are very anxious. You are very anxious, but banks build on statistics, and the statistics now show that actually they are better credit worthy than men. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment. So some particular questions. James, you had a couple. Diana, you as well. Let me start though on this side, and we'll make our way right to the end. Ambassador, with you, we'll begin.
Well, no specific questions, but few comments. Just on the comment of the comments, a number of comments were made regarding socialization. While we do acknowledge that it is really a problem in a number of African countries, I mean, let's be honest. This is not a problem we are confronted with here. In terms of empowerment, really empowerment, both social, political empowerment, equal rights, that has been achieved here. So this is, we are really in the right place to have that conversation, as I started, regarding just what could we do to get to the next level regarding economic empowerment. So I don't think that could serve as an excuse, with all due respect, not in our context. That we just have to be honest. In the context of Rwanda, that can serve as an excuse. What could serve as an excuse, what could be a reason, is that, well, we are still, what are we doing with these different opportunities that have been provided? Are we really out there? But I just wanted to make that point that, well, while I do acknowledge that the issue is real in a number of countries, I don't think that is the main challenge we are confronted with here. This is not a real challenge here. The real challenge we are confronted with here has to do with really accessing financing and what are the ways and means to do so. A second comment has to do with, that, the women have to drive the solutions. I do believe that on this we really, once again, need to commend New Faces, New Voices. This is a women initiative. This is a women-led initiative. This is a women initiative that has a continental ambition. So once we have all these chapters that really, with their different realities, but would have mature, will be at a stage of just getting tangible, concrete results, then we should also at the same time parallelly analyze how we could link the different chapters and make sure that we are even making bigger the number, but also the influence to negotiate with both financial institutions or be they national institutions or international financial institutions. So I think let's not put ourselves down. This is completely a women initiative.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Julie. Very quickly, before I answer Monique's question, which is a very, very pertinent question, I think I want to reiterate what the ambassador said. New Faces, New Voices is an incredibly powerful bargaining chip. Do not have any excuses about it. We might want to think that we're having this investment fund and run and give it to Equity Bank to manage for us. We can be a bank in ourselves. This is how Kenya Women Finance Trust began. We were asked to give, I think, 100 shillings then, Julie, and I gave 100 shillings, and Kenya Women Finance Trust is powerful, number 6, number 7 in the banking institution in Kenya. To respond to Monique's question, what it would take, what women themselves need to do to be at the C-suite level, the highest level that you get in boards of financial institutions, just what men need to do. You need to be on top of your game. You know, we were given basic education by our parents. We have our degrees, our first, our second, our third. But are we generating new knowledge? Or did we close our books on graduation day? Are we learning? Are we bettering ourselves? Are we sharpening our tools? We need to keep learning. You need to become indispensable. Be a thought leader. That's one thing that is extremely important. Because when you're at that level, and your talk is limited to what you read in your books, you're no better than a doctor who didn't know that we moved way beyond giving people injections in their backs to look for meningitis. You know, you have to keep reading, refreshing, and sharpening your tools. People say that women have to do twice as much to be just as good as men. I totally refute that kind of thinking. Thank you. Women have to believe in themselves. Women have to be bold. They have to be daredevils. When you are passed over for promotion, you have to be strong enough to go and face the authorities and the powers that be and remind them of what you have done. Politely show them what options you would want in the institution. Don't sit back and wait for them to promote you, but go out and have that conversation. That is what men do, actually, after working hours in the bars and in the clubs. Network. Put your best foot forward. It was interesting, Julie, to see how each and every bank here was struggling to tell us what they're doing for women. Baby steps. We have a long way to go. We have to be aggressive. We have to go for it. And this is what women need to do. You know, don't be afraid to be told that you are loud or shanuka, you know, yeah. In English, kimbelembele. It's not about being kimbelembele. It's about knowing what you have. And the last, if you permit, and which is very dear to my heart, don't engage in anything that you're not passionate about. I borrowed those words from the first daughter of Rwanda, Ange Kagame. Don't engage in anything you're not passionate about. Don't do minimum. I don't understand how you can take a job and not give your best to the job. Just give it your best. Work, don't kill yourself. Work smart. Work well. What you do, what comes out, the output, is an appenditure of your signature. You're telling yourself, people, who you are. When you send out a one-page letter with 10 mistakes, I'm sorry, you're not getting to the Swiss suit. So those are my words.
Thank you so much. Sorry, just incredibly powerful. Use your social capital. Leverage your, women. Just because you don't go to the bar in the evening doesn't mean you don't have social capital that you can't leverage. Leverage it. So important. And then value that you put on yourself. If you know you should have had the promotion, be able to sit and explain why you feel you should have had it. Be able to communicate boundaries and limitations to what you're willing to put up with in the workplace. Be able to communicate what you expect to be paid. Because otherwise, if you don't and you don't put your foot down, you'll find out that the man next to you who lives halfway through your day, he's off. He's actually on twice your salary. But then, did you put your foot down? Maybe we need to start. James, sorry, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think my appeal is that we be the change that we want to see. Essentially, we can keep on saying the problem is culture, the problem is socialization, but we can be the agents of that change so that our future is not a continuation of the past. But if we submit, then the future is predictable. It will be exactly like the past, because we'll be doing the same things and we'll get the same results. So for me, the way we are socialized, we can change. That cultural barriers, which are repugnant to modernization, we can challenge them. And challenge them in a very subtle way, and we'll be able to overcome. And lastly is to change our psyche. I think in one way or another, men are said to be aggressive. A woman can be aggressive without being abrasive. You can be aggressive in humility. And essentially, there is room and space for aggression. Why? Because the world gives way to the best. Nobody cares so much about number two. They only want to know who was number one. So it is very important that as women we look at it. It tends to be over-glorified with the achievement of Equity Bank. But the secret of Equity Bank is involvement and engagement of women. Diana didn't ask me the statistics of Equity Bank when she was giving the statistics of the World Bank. But in Kenya, for a long time, Equity had more than 50% of all bank accounts, with 54% being women.
Wow.
The pure secret was director of strategy for the group is a woman, Mary. Director of credit is a woman, Elizabeth. Director of operations is a woman, Hilda. Managing director of the foundation is a woman, Helen. Director of agriculture is Esther. So essentially, the bank became the first of the women. So I'm very, very privileged. What am I saying? The women have to believe in themselves because there is demonstrated capability. It's there. And these are the type of models I would say we would need to borrow. There's need for innovation. Equity's model is built on inclusiveness and giving women equal opportunity. Amazingly, the results are too superior for most of the banks in the world. We are ranked number 4 best bank in the world. If you look at the Global Banker this year, essentially a product of women's effort and women's brain. And you had my classmate telling me, James, you are not aware, I overtook you again. So essentially you can see, but she has that ability. You can see the subtle aggression of my classmate. Let me say lastly about innovation. I think you can and we need to develop innovative products. I want to pay tribute to UNDP and UN Women. we developed a product called Fanikisha, and it ties exactly with the theme of today, making it possible for women. It has 10 products in one so that it addresses all the segments and classes of women. Today, 7 years later, Fanikisha has disbursed equivalent of 210 billion Rwandan francs to about 860,000 women, majority of them who have become upper middle income. It's simply a product tailored, and I'm glad to say we are launching it in Rwanda, in partnership with New Faces, and it has been championed by every maybe you could start with Charette, your colleague director. Where is your colleague? So essentially what you have done, like if you look at Rwanda, 50% of the board members, of non-executive board members of Equity are women. If you look at management, the head of client relationship, Anastasia, are you in? Credit risk, again, is a woman. Head of networks is a woman. Essentially, you connect with the targeted clientele base. That is essential.
Thank you.
Part of innovation.
Thank you. You did have a specific question. I'll literally ask you to answer it as briefly as possible on dealing with financial illiteracy with women.
Particularly in the rural areas.
In the rural communities.
Thank you very much. A very impressive question, because we should really be focused about the majority. And the majority of women are in rural areas. The way we embrace it in Equity, because that's what makes the bulk of our customer base, are two things: partnerships. Like in Rwanda, we have done a partnership with the Ministry of Agriculture. We were targeting 1.5 million farmers. We have now formed a partnership with IFC. We are targeting 5 million farmers. So you can see this can only be done through partnerships, so that everybody brings their competitive advantage. Essentially, then you create a technology platform, which we are working with Rwanda Online, which then makes it very convenient to use agency network and mobile banking, such that you deliver the convenience that women will require in financial access.
Thank you so much.
And then lastly is financial literacy. We are planning a training, an 11-week training on financial literacy for 1 million rural women.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Manoj, please. Your final comments.
Okay, I don't have any specific comments. I just want to go back to the theme with the observation that there is a huge groundswell on addressing the gaps in the base of the pyramid, micro-enterprises, SME, as far as women's businesses go, because there is the business opportunity. And it's only the matter of with what pace this will get addressed. But have no doubt, if you look at the last 10 years of development, that this will get addressed. My pet theme comes back to the empowerment at the top, and where a lot just needs to be done, and there the future has to be today. It cannot be gradualism. It cannot be any qualifications before you get there. That has to start today. And I also see that New Faces and New Voices, in addition to being an agent of change, can also make agents of change. When you actually deal with large institutions such as the World Bank, the Cokes and the Pepsis, you can also ask them, when you negotiate 100 million lines for women's businesses, what they are doing in their institutions to cause this change. Each of these institutions has 150, 200,000 employees across 100, 150 countries. They can cause bigger change than perhaps small groups and chapters in different places. Empowerment and change has to start at the top, and then probably there will be a point of confluence where it also rises from the bottom. But I think that's where I would end. The empowerment at the top is very, very important, because that's where the decision making is.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you all for participating in this session. I think I love to draw on African knowledge, and I love African proverbs. I picked one for the close of this session. But let me, before I read the African proverb, refer to the words of Jeanette Kagame, First Lady here in Rwanda, who said, exclusion, the one thing that we learned as a country was that exclusion and discrimination benefit absolutely no one. Those are the words that you used. But in our society, so often we think of religion, we think of race, we think of tribe, and we do not see the exclusion of women. And hopefully this is a movement that will start to change that story. The proverb reads, "Looking at a king's mouth, one would never think he sucked his mother's breast." Is this true? Looking at a king's mouth, one would never believe he sucked his mother's breast. That you came from this creature that was a woman, that she nurtured you. That here in Africa, it is mothers and grandmothers who bring up the children of this continent. They feed them, they care for them. No matter what their situation, no matter how poor they are, they struggle on. What incredible heroes these people are, but we just forget. And so the pledge perhaps as we leave here is that this is a thought we must inject into the minds of all the partners, particularly into the minds of male leadership, even as we work with them to ensure that we are truly transforming our societies. I'm really humbled to have been here. God bless you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your session. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause to our wonderful panelists and moderator. You may step off the stage now. Thank you again so much. Now, I believe that this very first panel discussion has really set the tone for the remaining of the conference. We have to be engaged, have to be passionate, we have to use our social network, and we have to be fearless, most important of everything. So once again, thank you for your attention, for being here with us today. We are going to take a very short break and head on to the luncheon section. During your lunch, you will hear from a motivational speaker. Her name is Miss Audrey Mutupi from Systemic Logic, and her speech will be on the financial inclusion call to action. After the lunch, there will be another panel presentation, this time with new faces, new voices. The chair will be delivering the strategic plan. You will also hear about from the partner from New Faces and New Voices. My name is Sanjana Mutoni. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it was a great honor to be here with you today. I wish you a great afternoon. Thank you.